Yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won one. Yeah. I hope my team they won one. Yeah. Man, I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. Yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
Welcome in to episode 584 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast. The show that's covering sporting HBCU diaspora and all things HBCU sports for institutions large and small, from the NAIA to the NCAA. We share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture and HBCU athletic and aesthetics to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs and the business of HBCU sports. I'm Charles Bishop. I'll be hosting today as Doc is away this morning on traveling. We got a full crew today. Got David Rose, got Big Mike, got Wilton Jackson II. AD Drew is coming from parts unknown somewhere, audio-wise. But we're filming from our home studios and sending the signal live to our KCOH 1230 AM studios with the Texas Radio Hall of Famer himself, Ralph Cooper, and beautiful home of Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. Guys, we got a lot of places to go this Sunday morning, but I'm going to start things off and say congratulations to the MEAC champions who punched their ticket to the Celebration Bowl, the South Carolina State Bulldogs. Impressive victory yesterday. They closed the show out. I mean, we'll wrap it around the horn. David, your thoughts on the Bulldogs this season?
I will say this. Prior to the season, the big thing I mentioned was about continuity and who was going to have that continuity in the MEAC. And some was conventional and some was not so much. And South Carolina State was not so much. And you can see that continuity that they had with Chennis Berry coming in, bringing in this quarterback from Benedict. That was the continuity that they need. Everybody understood the system, brought in a lot of players from Benedict College. They all knew what they needed to do. And the last time the Bulldogs made it to the Celebration Bowl, they ran the table in the MEAC, and it looks like they're on pace to do that once again. So congratulations to them. And there's a lot more folks that are looking forward to basketball season right now.
Mike, 54-7, they closed out the show in impressive fashion against Morgan State.
Man, you remember about a week ago, and we were on this show, and Doc was trying to pub it's Morgan State. Morgan State's got a strong defense. They got a chance. They can make things interesting. And what do we say? Stop it, Doc. Stop it. Who has been the strongest team on the road all year in South Carolina State? They are on the way. I agree with David. They are on their way. The last time they treaded this route, they ended up winning the Celebration Bowl. I think they're on their way this time. They have a strong, remarkable defense, and defense travels, wins championships. I don't care how much fluctuation you get in that offense, whatever. But this here on out, hands down, was the strongest team in the MEAC. I was kind of tooting their horn earlier this year. Wasn't sure how they would fare against North Carolina Central, and you saw that matchup. It's hands down South Carolina State, the number one team in college and in HBCU football.
South Carolina State gets.
No, you said I'm not. Look at that. I look at that steer, CB.
One thing I will say that a lot of folks haven't really discussed is the fact that Eric Phoenix got injured in this game. Caden Hyde got injured during this game, and they still gave it.
They still that's what I meant by I don't care how much that offense fluctuates. That defense carries. Goes without saying, the old adage: defense wins championships.
No doubt, as we see Dr. Cavil checking in with morning beverage in hand, tomato juice. Wilton, man, Chennis Berry gets it done year one, coming over from Benedict. I mean, brought some Louis Vuitton luggage with him as well, huh?
Yeah. No, he did. He must have brought a lot of Louis because he and the crazy thing is when I talked to him in the beginning of the season, he was like, it's a lot of people counting us out, sleeping on us, and I was the first one to tell him. I was like, y'all are my. I told him, I said, y'all are my sleeper team to really, really make some noise in the MEAC. And now look, how many times did we talk in the beginning of this show about South Carolina State, Chennis Beard, what he's been able to do with programs, not just with South Carolina State, but what he had done at Benedict and other places he had been. So it's like to see where he is now. I mean, it's incredible. This is the same team that after they beat North Carolina Central, I said they got two other tests. They got initially Morgan State and Howard. And I mean, they blew through those tests A+. No, I skipped by Howard or I skipped by Morgan State. No, these were like, hey, we manhandled them. These were just the tests onto the next test, which will now be Celebration Bowl. So shout out to Chennis Beard for the job that he's done with South Carolina State. Their offense, defense, special teams, everything looks good. And I mean, like they have rightfully deserved their shot to compete in the Celebration Bowl this year.
No doubt. Brother AD Drew, we still got a SWAC championship game to play, but why does no SWAC team want to see this South Carolina State team?
Why? Because you're talking about a Chennis Berry who, here's your most useless fact but relevant fact, has won 24 consecutive conference games across two conferences in two divisions. Think about that, fellas. He has not lost a conference game since 2021. That's why he knows how to win. He is a proven winner. And, for whoever comes out of the SWAC championship game, they're going to be in the fight for their life against the South Carolina State Bulldogs because, bar injury, they will be the favorites.
Interesting.
You only got 1 week to prepare each two. You ain't got 2 weeks like you normally.
Only got 1 week.
Yep. And
they got the 2 week
big
rest.
Difference. Yep.
And that actually brings me to
3 week rest. South Carolina State have 3 weeks.
It brings me to my next point because I think that's one of those things that people in the SWAC. I mean, it's sort of a scuttlebutt that everybody kind of talks about. That sort of the MEAC champion, they get that opportunity to rest, whereas with the SWAC championship game, there isn't quite as much of an opportunity. And I guess the age-old question is, does that actually favor the MEAC teams, or is it just something to talk about?
There's another R word that we never talk about enough, and it's called rust. And I think when you're sitting there for 3 weeks, there can be rust. And A&T's been at that Celebration Bowl a few times. And I remember one year where I was legitimately concerned that we were going to lose that Celebration Bowl because of the rust. And that was 2018 against Alcorn State. So it depends. It's about preparation and things of that sort. And sometimes you could say because you're only going to have to play a week apart, you have that rhythm. Another R, you'll have that rhythm to go into that game knowing what needs to be done, where you're going up against a team that's also could be rusty.
Well, let's look at the statistics now. Let's look at the last 7, 8 Celebration Bowl. Who's been the winner? MEAC, right?
Yeah.
Last year SWAC,
Last year SWAC. Former MEAC team, but before that, the 7 years pre to that, it's been all MEAC. You can make the argument the common denominator is, hey, I get 2-3 weeks rest. I get to prepare. I'm ready. I can come to the game, and even with game halftime adjustments, my team is more fresh than a team with only 1 week's rest.
I'm going to throw something else out there, and this is totally off the field. But with 3 weeks to prepare versus 1 week, the student athletes and the coaches get an opportunity to handle all of the off-field stuff. Ticket requests. Is mama and them coming down to Atlanta? The MEAC student athletes actually can take a woosah, concentrate on being a student for a minute, and concentrate on their finals, and then get back to the action on the field. Versus the SWAC athlete who still is going through a regular routine, weekly routine, And then you add in the fact of the travel and the fact that you're going to have to travel. What teams usually arrive Wednesday, Thursday in
Yep.
Atlanta,
Yep.
and if your institution happens to be in finals during that time, now you guys are going through making all kind of arrangements, trying to make sure that they get these finals and stuff. You know, there's a lot of off the field disadvantages in addition to everything that you guys have brought up on the field.
Yes.
Well, it's an academic institution first and foremost, right?
Well, to Diana Cunningham, she brings up an interesting point. She's like, I don't want to hear all this swag whining early. We're gonna be the horse every year.
I mean, at the end of the day, it is what it is. You just got you got to deal with it. Exactly. They're either gonna move classes, but we don't see that that's gonna happen right now.
That's never gonna happen. I got. When I talked about moving to Bayou Classic, I got attacked pretty bad on Twitter, so I'm not gonna mention that ever again.
Oh, you will never get them to move to Bayou Classic. That will not happen. That will not happen. But I think if you're the SWAC, it's just more so one of those things, and it just really comes down to this. This was, the schedule's made way, obviously ahead in advance. And if you make it to this point of the season, you just got to be prepared to play. It simply comes down to that. You're competing for a championship. It's a lot on the line, and it's just one of those things that you just got to be ready to play.
Because of the CFP, the College Football Playoff, they had to move the Celebration Bowl up a week because you don't want to be going head to head against that. So you still want to be the first bowl game out the gate. Like that was a big thing with the Celebration Bowl when it first started, being the first bowl game. That helps with ratings, that helps with attention. So that's a great thing to get us back to that slot as well.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Let's take a quick break because we got a lot of SWAC people waiting to jump in and chime in. We got
where the Rattler fans at? Where are the Rattler fans?
They probably aren't gonna come out today.
Hey, we old school New Orleans Saints right now. We got the paper bags on.
The bags on?
Wow.
Not the paper bags.
Well, I will say this before we take a break. Valley can brag a little different. We'll be right back here on Inside the HBCU Sports.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
Supermarket sushi, really?
No. Wait, Troy, you work here?
I'm never not working. Like Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology, up to 100% dandruff protection, even between washes.
Never not working, huh?
Oh, Troy, you're such a good teacher.
Yeah, I know. Never not working. Never not working. Never ever not working.
Are you serious?
Never not working. Dandruff protection that's never not working. Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology.
Hey, grab me one too.
Press the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
A lot of championship hardware to give out on this Sunday morning. We started off talking about South Carolina State, the MEAC champions. They punched their ticket and go to ticket. John Grant said it'll be delivered next week at the South Carolina State Norfolk game. But CIAA champion, Virginia Union, they get it done. SIAC, Miles, Golden Bears, they get it done. Let's start off in the CIAA, David. Talk about just Virginia Union team. They were able to go out there and get it done once again.
Yeah, Jada Byers returns once again.
Yes, he
did. And now we wait to see who will make the playoffs, the Division II playoffs. I don't think Virginia Union should have an issue there. But it was a really good game. It was a pretty close game for the bulk of it. It pretty much came down to the end with regards to that. I was watching a lot of that game during the day yesterday. But shout out to Virginia Union and the success that they've had. Jada Byers should be in the NFL. I'm going to keep saying that. He should be scouted. He should have an opportunity to get into the National Football League.
He damn sure should, because he's proven it week in, week out with regards to getting it done for Virginia Union. Mike, 17-13 win for the Panthers yesterday. What stood out for you?
Oh, I can't say Jada Myers. What, 178 yards by himself, over 250, 260 yards that they got. He was 2/3 of the offense. This is nothing new. Unlike what happened a week ago, it was basically let the buyers flow. And this, I agree. If this guy is not considered for the NFL, something is wrong with this system. But we'll see what happens in the weeks to come, and where I think they'll have the seating for the playoff. Today at 6 p.m. something like that. So we'll see where this team goes from there. But hands down, it was all about buyers and all about how much they were running. I did not get a chance to catch the game. I was catching a couple of other games and at the PD game. But man, if you look at the stats and I had a chance to see some of the highlights, the score seemed close, but I mean, it was a Virginia Union kind of day.
Yeah. Wilton, you texted me yesterday. I was doing play-by-play, and I looked down. I was like, oh, Union got it done. We played up the back-to-back times and played Virginia State, but was that much of a factor yesterday in taking a look at the score of the game?
No, it didn't necessarily become a factor. I just think the team that really truly wanted it the most is the team that won, and you're talking about that being Virginia Union. Obviously, we could give all types of superlatives about Jada Byers and his play, and obviously, it didn't shock anybody what he did yesterday. But I think more than anything, seeing Mark Wright throw that last touchdown to Reginald Vick Jr. was good to see, because so much attention goes to Byers, but seeing him throw that touchdown and a touchdown that they needed to essentially win that game was big. You talking about going up against a rival for a CIAA title again. So it was good to see Virginia Union get that win. Shout out to Coach Parker, because I mean his guys played well. Defense, obviously was a big part in that, getting that final interception against Virginia State in that game. So shout out to Parker and the job he's doing at Virginia Union.
AD Drew, set the stage for us. Who do you expect Virginia Union to take on in the playoff?
Well, I'm glad you asked me that question, because a Virginia Union Miles matchup we will not see, because in all likelihood, Virginia Union will be moved to Super Region 1 like they were last year.
Wow.
And replaced by somebody for Super Region 1 and Super Region 2, and they do that for geography. So that's one thing. Let's keep an eye on today to see if they stay in their natural region or get flip-flopped due to travel concerns. Also,
no doubt.
You mentioned NFL, Mike, and Will, you mentioned some other things for Jada Byers. Let's keep an eye out on the Harlan Hill Award, which is the D2 equivalent to the Heisman.
Yes.
I expect Jada Byers to be making out of the regional round. I do have a vote in the Harlan Hill. So, and I implore everyone associated with an HBCU who has a Harlan Hill vote, it should go to Jada Byers, because he's going to be the best chance that we have in a long time to have an award winner on the national level at the Division II level.
Very good point, AD. And talking about the Harlan Hill Trophy and Jada Byers' chances for it. Go ahead.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Voting. I just got the first email about the Harlan Hill this past week, alerting us that the votes were going to start opening up. What happens with the Harlan Hill? There's a regional process. Then obviously you have to make it out of the regional area process in order to make it to the national process. So those votes should be opening up. I believe they actually opened up this week for the regional level. So we shall see. I know the people at Virginia Union are going to nominate him. So we'll see when the ballots start coming in how everybody votes for him. But from a numbers perspective and as a career achievement, he has more than a puncher's chance to bring home the Harlan Hill, unlike Tyson did on Friday night.
We won't even go there. Hey,
I don't want to talk about that. I'm
Yeah.
just glad I didn't have to pay a pay-per-view price for it. I just had to watch it for free.
Yes, indeed. Let's take a look at it. SIAC championship. Miles Golden Bears, first conference championship since 2019. Their fifth since 2011. Golden Bears got it done. No rat poison yesterday. It was a dominant victory, 53-25. AD Drew, your thoughts on Miles?
First of all, I got to step on my soapbox for a minute. I cannot stand when the play-by-play and color person have no clue about HBCUs and HBCU coaching. Because last week, Miles defeated Tuskegee. Not Tuskegee, Tuskegee. So that irks me when they mispronounce our school's names. Folks, it's all corn, it's all Fanning, and it's Tuskegee, not Tuskegee. Anyway,
Point well made.
The fact that Miles was able to jump out. How did Miles jump out? That defense. That defense was able to get you. They put up a fumble six. It was really a pick six because David Wright got hit while the ball was in the air, and the ball was picked off by a lineman and returned. It was like 60-some-odd yards for the touchdown. And then from there, they started snowballing for Clark Atlanta, wound up down 23-0. But just in Clark Atlanta fashion, Clark Atlanta started making a run and scared. Clark Atlanta still put up numbers in this particular game. It was just the fact that Miles' defense made the plays they needed to make to influence the game. I expect, and I'll go ahead and jump to this, I expect Miles to come in 5, 6 in the regional rankings. I doubt if they would did good enough to get a home game, but the fact that they are there, they're in the tournament, and guys, we are looking at probably the first time since about week 3, week 4, where Miles has been healthy. So those teams in Super Region 2, please beware. The Miles team that you think you saw, and you go back to that West Alabama film, is not the Miles team that you're going to play in round 1.
Interesting.
Wow.
Wilton, Miles, dominant win over Clark, and I'm going to y'all quickly go around and give us your thoughts on Miles and what it is that you've seen from them this season, because they started out 0-2 and then reeled off 8 in a row, but the impressive victory over Clark.
Well, I think when you look at Miles offensively, and AD Drew kind of mentioned that they were dealing with some injuries. I mean, even when we had Coach on the show, he didn't even have his starting quarterback at that time in that first game against Clark Atlanta. Obviously, Cam Ivory yesterday plays in that game. He had a pretty decent game, but more so than anything, their defense each week continued to build that continuity that we saw. And really, you somewhat essentially got a duplication of what you saw in the first game. Defense stepping up, making plays against Clark Atlanta, then defense stepping up, making plays in this particular game as well. Of course, Janero Scott, how many times can we talk about him in the running game and what he's been able to do? Had a solid game yesterday. So I think what you started to see, and to your point, Charles, each week they started to build that continuity. This was a complete Miles team that we saw yesterday. I didn't think that they were going to drop 50 points on Clark, but I definitely thought that they were going to win this game, but they won it in convincing fashion.
Dave, Mike, Miles Golden Bears, they got it done.
Miles is going to be very dangerous in the playoffs. Very dangerous.
And AD say they're healthy now.
Yeah, man, they're going to be dangerous, man. I hope they can make a run in the Super 2 region.
Yeah. If you look at it, the first 2 or 3 games, they were, you were saying, well, what Miles is this? They were middle of the pack. They finished the year. They're number 1 in defense. They're allowing 17.3 points per game, which was nowhere close to anybody else outside of maybe Fort Valley, Albany. Let me make sure I say that straight. My father-in-law will kill me, but make sure I say that straight. But nobody was even close to that number. This was clearly a different Miles. And that defense, I agree with AD, who is probably more of a mid-major expert than I'll ever be. But if you can just look at it, I had a chance to catch some of that game. And if you look at it, man, they look incredibly impressive. I want to see the team that they face as well, because that defense alone, let alone them being third or fourth in the SIAC in offense, they still picking up 30 points a game on average. So very well, more of a balanced team by the time they finish the end of the year, which is where you want to be.
Halfway point of the show, guys. We're going to take another break, and we got hardware to give out. SWAC East champs, SWAC West champs. We'll talk a little SWAC football. We'll be back here on Inside the HBCU Sports Lab.
If you think all pads are exactly the same, think again. This is Always Ultra Thins reinvented with the Always Triple Protection System. This pad wicks gushes 90% faster, absorbs even more so you can feel dry, and locks odors in. Rethink your pad for up to 100% leak-free and odor-free comfort with the totally reinvented Always Ultra Thins. This is always like never before.
The Cavil Group is a Florida-based marketing and training consulting firm. We help businesses communicate to their target audience and engage them in conversation. We also help to expand their audiences, which will ultimately result in growth for those organizations. In addition to being a certified constant contact specialist, my colleagues and I are also certified in John Maxwell Leadership Principles. We use these proven principles to conduct workshops, training, and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cavil.
At AutoMasters LLC, our mission is to serve our community by providing quality automobiles at affordable prices. All of our vehicles are inspected and certified to offer you the confidence in knowing you have a quality vehicle. Our goal is to provide you with a seamless process and positive experience for your automobile purchase. Financing recommendations and specific vehicle inquiries are available at your request. You can find us at www.automasters06.com and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Also, please feel free to contact Terrence Miles at 601-927-7794. And oh yeah, tell him Sonia sent you.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they want a law, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
Welcome back in. Dr. Bill's inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Full crew with us this morning. Let's take a look around the SWAC action yesterday and read out some scores. And we're going to get the congratulations in order for Jackson, Mississippi, and Baton Rouge, Louisiana. But Alcorn knocked off Prairie View 26-13 yesterday. Mm-hmm. Texas Southern, they knocked off Bethune-Cookman 17-14. Mississippi Valley State 24. Florida A&M.
Get it out, baby. Just get it
21. Out. Mike, you've become synonymous with Valley. We talking about Valley. Damn it. Valley got it done yesterday and ended the streak. We got to talk about that before we get to the championship part. But what? I looked down at my phone 2 or 3 times because they got this wrong. But what happened in Brad yesterday, guys?
I was like, say it ain't so. I was at the PV game watching the Jackson State game and a couple of others, and this one kept flashing across. This cannot be the same Valley that was until yesterday 0-9 overall, 0-5 overall, allowing 40 points per game from their opponents, only scoring an average of 16 points. This cannot be that same Valley. Sure, maybe they're in itty bitty Mississippi. No, they're in where? Where are they at? They are in Tallahassee. It can't be that if we allow Mississippi Valley to 141 points total yards. It can't be that FAMU scored 431 yards on the board. It can't be that Valley only put 90 yards on the board, but Valley put double that, damn near 180. What happened? 3 turnovers. That's it. 3 key turnovers. You ask what happened? They had pretty much most of the time. They had all of the offensive yardage but 3 key turnovers plus 9 penalties for 80 yards, whereas Valley only had 5 or 6 penalties. Those were the things that stuck out in my mind. Heck, Valley was 2 for $1 million on third down conversion. I'm sorry, the Rattlers were 2 for $1 million, so their offense was inefficient. 3 turnovers, inefficient, and penalties hurt them. I was still flabbergasted because you would think they still have a chance to win, but not yesterday. Not yesterday.
Two of those 3 turnovers were in the red zone for FAMU as well.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
AD, I'm going to let you put a bow on the Valley FAMU game, and I will say shout out to Delta Devil Nation. Those kids were playing inspired football yesterday. Unfortunate incident, they lost one of their teammates in a car accident 2 weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken.
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks.
But they went down with a point to prove down to Tallahassee. They got it done, AD.
Yes, the people in, I can't even joke and call them itty bitty anymore because Itabena can brag different right now. The highest of 7 hills got sent to the Valley on yesterday. And I'm gonna tell you, I was working a game yesterday, working a basketball game, and I actually went to turn on the CIAA championship game on the app, on the HBCU Go app, and the game that came up first was FAMU Valley. And I glanced at it. I saw it, but I really wasn't paying attention to it until I started getting texts in the couple of FAMU chat groups that I'm in. And, Cozy may have to go into the witness protection program right now because he is not loved in Tallahassee.
I'm going to turn.
Hold on. Let me say this.
Go ahead.
We lose the streak to Jackson State. Yeah, we pissed, but we could deal with that. We lose to Alabama State. Yeah, we pissed, we could deal with that. We even lose to a Prairie View or a Southern. We're pissed, but we could deal with that. But Mike, please say it. Valley? Say it for me, Mike.
Valley? We talking about Valley? We talking about Valley?
It does not compute that we went out and we lost to Valley. I'm wondering if those guys are mailing it in at this point in the season. And last point, it actually scares me next week going into the Florida class.
Interesting. Bethune-Cookman, they aren't a pushover. I'll say it that much. They looked really good at times yesterday against Texas Southern. It's going to be a fun Florida Classic. Dave, I'm going to shift gears a bit, man. Let's talk about hardware being given out. Baton Rouge yesterday. I'm going to speak to the Jaguar fans. Y'all were a little wishy-washy on Terrence Graves early in the season, but it might not be aesthetically pretty. But the Jaguars, once again, find themselves in the SWAC championship game, Dave.
Yeah, shout out to Southern. I didn't get to watch too much of this game, unfortunately, but it seems like they dominated the game. But the bottom line is this. It's going to be a rematch of the Boombox Classic this week, in a couple weeks for the SWAC championship. But shout out to them. They did a phenomenal job. I'm trying to pull up the stats right now because, like I said, I didn't watch too much of that game. But, I was concerned about UAPB's quarterback Higgins, but fortunately enough, he didn't have that good of a game. But defensively, Southern did what they had to do to go ahead and win the SWAC championship. They did a phenomenal job, so shout out to them.
Yeah, defensively, Southern got it done once again, one of the better defenses in the SWAC. And I tell you what, Wilson, it's going to be interesting. SWAC championship game. We got time to set that up, but Jackson State, they go into Montgomery yesterday. Huge win for Jackson State. SWAC East champions once again. And this Tiger Nation, they really sort of galvanized around TC Taylor and this group of Jackson State Tigers. Tremendous win to go into Montgomery and get that W.
Oh, absolutely. This is something that, and TC Taylor said it last week in his press conference. They've been looking at Alabama State all season. This game has been circled on their calendar all season. So to get this win, after losing to them on homecoming last year and to clinch the SWAC East, I mean, you can't tell a Jackson State fan or even these players anything right now, because this is what they truly wanted. It's the next step to the bigger step. Obviously, still have to play Alcorn next week in the Soul Bowl, but more so than anything, that was the next big check in terms of getting to the SWAC championship game. And Charles, you just said it, playing a rival in like Southern, a rematch of the Boombox Classic is going to be crazy. The vet will be rocking. Obviously, this probably for sure won't be the same Southern team that Jackson State saw in September. They've grown a lot. Shout out to Coach Graves and what he's been able to do in building the continuity with that team. It's going to be a good game. It's going to be a really good game, but shout out to Jackson State and Coach Taylor for really, taking that next step in year 2 for him. Because I talked to him at the beginning of the season, and obviously his first year they finished 7-4. He knows what 7-4 means for Jackson State. He didn't want to finish 7-4, and so to see where they are now, getting ready essentially after Alcorn, getting ready to play in the SWAC championship with the potential to win a SWAC title and a shot for the Celebration Bowl on the line. It's kudos to him for getting the team in that particular position and in his coaching staff.
I think you touched on something. He got it done year 2, and let's be honest. And there are certain places it's just not easy to be the head coach, and on any given day, you can be the mayor of Jackson, being the head coach at Jackson State University. Say it again.
Tallahassee ain't exactly the easy place to be a coach either.
Exactly. Tallahassee, Baton Rouge. I mean, there are certain places, man. It's hard. I put Grambling in there as well, but it's certain places. That seat is never not hot. But it says something. I think TC Taylor got it done in year 2, and really, when you take a look at the transition from Coach Prime to TC Taylor, talk about this particular iteration of the Jackson State Tigers. Obviously, you're going to be taking a look at a couple of guys that are going to be sitting in New York for the Heisman Trophy ceremony, and the transition, if you will, from that Coach Prime team 2022 to the 2024 Jackson State Tigers. What stands out about this team?
I think when you look at what TC had to deal with, obviously, 50, 60 players leaving, going to different schools. He brings in his own players. Anytime you have a shift in players coming into a program, you have to build that continuity. And it takes more than a year. So the fact that he was even able to bring in all the players that he did last year, obviously most of them staying and bringing in another top recruiting class, says a lot about him and his coaches that he has on staff, which we also need to mention that too. He brought in a whole, essentially almost 4 or 5 new coaches coming into this season. That played a part in being able to have the success that they've had. And you can see, as someone who has went to several of their practices throughout the season, the energy and the continuity that's being built within those players, or that has been built within those players in that team all season, has been on fire. And I think more than anything, TC having the opportunity to, come back to the program. Obviously, he was there before Coach Prime came back. He was there from the Hendrick days, but then also being able to see and watch the routines of Coach Prime and how he led the program, and knowing that, okay, this is how he led it. He got us to where we wanted to be. And I took a lot from that. And now I'm going to put my own twist to it. And I think it may have taken some time for people to really truly buy into what he was going to do with the program. But what he's been able to do from year 1 to year 2 has been phenomenal. And I think that he's only going to continue to get better. You talk about you're 8-2 now. What does that look like for recruiting coming into this program? Because again, this is a Jackson State team that, if I'm not mistaken, they're going to obviously lose some seniors, but they still have a lot of talent back, that's going to be coming back next year. And TC has said it all season. He built this team not only for December, but for the longevity of where this program wants to be. So being able to know that, and if you're TC, you're thinking to yourself, you got a contract extension, you have players coming back. This is what the future, the future is shaping up pretty bright in Jackson for at least the next 2 years for sure, where they could potentially be competing for a SWAC title or a Celebration Bowl coming out of the conference.
Let's talk a little bit about Terrence Graves. Southern Jaguars. I mean, if you counted them out in September, October, I mean, God bless. But here they are once again, and I think it's setting up for a very, very good SWAC championship game. If you're, those old Jackson State Tiger fans, you might still have PTSD from dealing with Southern, especially in the 90s. I remember the 99, the first SWAC championship game. That's probably one of the most loaded Jackson State teams that I've seen in quite some time, and Southern knocked them off then. And Southern Jaguars can always point to that first SWAC championship game when, Jackson State was a favorite going into that game, but they knocked them off. Terrence Graves, talk about the job that he's done at Southern this past year. AD, we'll start with you.
What's going on in Baton Rouge with the rules to create a quarterback? We looking at this Southern team, nobody is happy with who's been under center. I don't care which one of the quarterbacks have been under center. But they find a way to freaking win the ball game.
Yep.
Yes.
We don't know how. We don't know why. And they have won a game pretty much every way that they can this year. They have blown people out. We know you better not let them get to overtime because it's over at time. They've run with a rushing attack. They've even had flashes of having a true quarterback now and then. And despite everything that we say, because let's be real, across HBCU football, quarterback play is down. But some way, Southern has found a formula to win.
And that formula might have been the change in quarterback. Jalen Woods has the offense they're cranking over the past couple of weeks. So, I mean, that's one of the things that really kind of jumped out for me.
Yeah, I mean, and not only that, but one thing, Southern actually plays good defense. That defense,
the return of dog day defense, yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Jackson State better pay attention because I don't know how the tiebreaker will look. Should Jackson State lose to Alcorn? But there's a good chance Jackson could be traveling to Baton Rouge for the championship game instead of Southern traveling to Jackson for the championship game. Because don't know how the tiebreaker would go with both of them.
That's a very good point, and that's one of the things probably going to have to check on real quick. I mean, I don't think Jackson State is still out of the woods in terms of hosting the SWAC championship game. That Alcorn game still has some meat on the bone, but we'll get into that. We will take our final break as we will unveil Dr. Cavill's poll this week. What does it look like? Has South Carolina State, by virtue of punching their ticket, have they jumped into the number one spot? We'll be right back here on Inside the HBCU Sports Lab.
Choice Hotels is a family of brands that helps you get the most for your money so you can be any traveler you want to be.
You could be a free hot breakfast hero at a comfort hotel.
Yes!
That's how you waffle.
Mr. This Script got a plot twist at a Radisson hotel.
A business big leaguer.
Go for Key.
Even the ultimate pool float inflator.
With 22 brands and the best value for your money, Choice Hotels has a stay for any you.
Book direct at choicehotels.com, where travels come true.
Gotta get the corners.
Human Voice has always connected audiences with experiences. Major brands all across America have trusted Kever's voice time and time again. Conversational, powerhouse, intelligent, and sincere. That's the voice you need for your creative marketing process. KeversVoice.com. Kever's Voice, Kever's Voice, KeversVoice.com. Always on, all the time.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gonna teach a lesson.
Welcome back in to Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. You know, now we take a look at Dr. Cavill's poll this week. Let's see. We're talking about the major poll that he reveals every Sunday. And it'll be very interesting to take a look at this week's poll. Dropping out. Wow.
Shouldn't be a while. There should not be a while, sir.
Wow.
I wasn't,
you know, losing the valley is being out the poll.
It's still startling to me, you know, dropping out of the poll. But others receiving, well, look at the quick graphic. Others receiving votes. Prairie View, Morgan State, and Florida. Boy, that graphic got it at a fan.
Wow.
Man, the producers in a rush.
He said he's not having that.
Yeah, man. Talk about running the controls. Let's take a look at the number 7 team. Alabama State, they check in at number 7 with the loss to Jackson State, 5-5 on the season, 4-3 in conference play. Checking in at number 6, big win yesterday for the Alcorn State Braves. They go on the road and get it done in Prairie View. Mike, man, up and down Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, PV Panther team.
Yeah, absolutely. That game, the name of the game for PV was discipline and consistency. They had some long drives and couldn't finish, unfortunately. They still had a chance even at the end of the game with 3 minutes left to win it and muffed a punt somehow. But I think at the end of the day, it was a microcosm of what their season has been. They'll play well at sometimes, and then at other times you're like, where has this team been? And they just could not sustain consistent drives. Y'all talk about coaches on the hot seat. The Panther lines are blowing up. Trust me. And I mean blowing up since actually before the game yesterday. And even with FAMU's game, that the Panther lands are hot. But with the Panthers, it was, flat out inconsistency. They played well against the Alcorn State Braves, especially in the second half, but could not maintain that consistency, especially on the offensive side.
Can I ask a question?
Go for it, AD.
Considering what FAMU did this week, does the FAMU win not look as good as it did last week?
No, it's still
to Panther Nation.
No, I don't. Well, what AD was saying was, does the Prairie View win over FAMU? Does it still look as good considering the loss yesterday to Valley?
I think it does.
Correct.
With the Panther fans, it's a momentary, but I can say overall, no.
Interesting. Let's carry on. Checking in at number 5 by virtue of their big win over UAPB yesterday, 31-9. The Jaguars, they check in at number 5 this week on the poll. The SWAC West champions, they get it done once again. They will be facing off against Jackson State in the SWAC championship game. Checking in, and this is where it starts getting interesting, fellas. Checking in at number 4, Tennessee State Tigers. We haven't got into talking about the Tennessee State Tigers, but big win when you talk about their win over Gardner-Webb yesterday, Will.
Yeah, no, it was a good win. You talked about a team in Tennessee State that had high expectations coming into this season. And now we finally, even in previous seasons, they had high expectations, but we finally got a chance to see those expectations come real and come to fruition this season. Shout out to Eddie George and what he's been able to do with that team. Tennessee State team that after a couple of weeks, we kept questioning whether or not they were for real. What Tennessee State team were we going to get? And now even pulling out a close win yesterday against Gardner-Webb has solidified their spot. And it's just good to see where they're at. Hopefully, Eddie George is not about to leave, but the reports are there.
Well,
so
I mean, go ahead, Dave. Go ahead.
To piggyback on this, so because of what happened in the Big South OVC yesterday, there's a scenario where there could be a 4-way tie for first place in that conference. So Tennessee State plays Southeast Missouri next week. They win that game, they'll have a share of the title. So then I don't know what the coin flips or how it's going to work if there's a 4-way tie for that conference. But there's a legitimate scenario right now with UT Martin losing to Tennessee Tech. There's going to be a 4-way tie in that conference next week.
We've talked about Tennessee State with that November swoon over the past few years, but this year, Shouts out to Eddie George and what he's done with that program. No
Yeah.
swoon this year. They got it done on the road yesterday. Big win for the Tennessee State Tigers. 8-3 overall, 5-2 in the OVC. Let's take a look at the final three slots. Checking in at number 3, the North Carolina Central Eagles, 7-3, 3-1 in MEAC play. They needed help, but to no avail as the South Carolina State Bulldogs, they close things out. Let's check in the final 2 spots. Checking in at number 2, South Carolina State, the Bulldogs, 8-2, 4-0 in MEAC play. They are the MEAC champions. They punched their ticket to the Celebration Bowl. Dr. Cavil, woo!
I don't agree.
What?
They got
I
to
don't agree.
Two.
I don't agree.
Completely disagree.
I don't agree.
Completely disagree.
The Jackson State Tigers are the number 1 team in Dr. Cavil's poll, 9-2, 7-0. SWAC East champions still got work to do against Alcorn and the SWAC championship game. But guys, your thoughts, especially slot 1 and 2. Go for it, AD.
All right. Full disclosure. I have been one of those people for the last 2 weeks who have voted South Carolina State number 1. This week, I flipped my vote. The reason I flipped my vote is that this is a week-to-week poll. I thought Jackson State's victory over Alabama State was better than South Carolina State's victory over Morgan State, especially considering where Alabama State is, record-wise, strength of schedule, et cetera, et cetera. That is why I flipped my vote this week, because of the week-to-week nature of this poll. Probably South Carolina State has a better overall body of work, but if you take last week in a singular instance, I have to give my vote to Jackson State.
So, AD Drew?
I want to talk about number 3 and number 4,
though.
Yes, absolutely.
There's no way in hell
I will flip them. I agree.
that I can vote North Carolina Central number 3, considering that she got blown out by Elon at the house. And you have Virginia Lynchburg on your schedule. And Tennessee State has played an entire Division II schedule and is a legitimate 8-3 at the Division II level. There's no way in hell I could put North Carolina Central above Tennessee State. And my poor Raptors, they have walked through the valley of the shadow of death.
They fear evil now.
They fear.
They feel that devil.
But AD, to your point, I feel you. I feel you. That's an interesting look-see at the 4 and 3 spot. I like your rationale. Fair point. Wilton, hey man, give us your thoughts on the poll this week, man.
I'm okay with 5, 6, and 7. I'm glad AD Drew kind of hit on 3 and 4, because I probably would have flipped Tennessee State to number 3 and Central to being number 4. In terms of 1 and 2, I like it. I do think that there is a case. There could be a case for South Carolina State to be number 1. But when you look at both teams in Jackson State and South Carolina State, both of them played 2 defense-based teams this week. South Carolina State had Morgan, and Jackson State had Alabama State. I think that while South Carolina State blew out Morgan State, which was very impressive because it could have been, different, but South Carolina State took care of business. With Jackson State, seeing them, I think for me, pull out a win against a really physical Alabama State team, because the last couple of weeks we've seen Jackson State pretty much kind of go. Second half they scored points, they shut out opponents. It was 4 weeks they shut out opponents from in the second half, 4 consecutive weeks. So to see them pull out a win in this particular way, because here's the thing: if things go as planned right now and they do face a South Carolina State team, what we saw them deal with against Alabama State is probably something similar to what they would see in the Celebration Bowl should they get there. So can they win games like that? This was a good litmus test to see.
You boys are doing a great job of not incurring the wrath of Tiger Mafia. Nice job. I like that. You talk about Bills Mafia. You don't want the smoke from Blue Bengal Nation. Mike, Dave, take a look at the polls. What's your thought? Go for it, Mike.
So, yeah, I agree with what 5 and 6. I think Southern has the head-to-head against Alcorn. I think it was a homecoming game, whatever. But so I agree with that. I think Tennessee State and North Carolina Central arguably should be switched for the very reasons AD said. But if you look through 3 or 4 years back, we've said, Tennessee State, they've been in the middle or whatever, and there have been times where they flirted with getting to the top. But for whatever reason, they fell short against 2 or 3 teams, and those 2 or 3 teams happen to be the traditional powerhouses of that division. This year, completely different. They have beaten at least 2 of the previous 5 or 6 champions in that division, and they still got SEMO next week. Even barring they even lose, that still this season for Tennessee State has been incredible, and the strength of schedule by which they play far more exceeds that of North Carolina Central. So for that, I think Tennessee State should be number 3. I think South Carolina State should be number 1. We talked about, they're going to play. Who was that team they played? Oh, Doc tried to make a big deal. They got a strong defense. It seemed like Jackson State, when they played out, they kind of lingered around. Maybe I looked at the way they played, but if you look, there's 3 or 4 games that Jackson State has come close to letting teams hang around. And I think Tiger fans have to admit that. And I think with Alabama State, yes, they have a very good defense, but I think there are times Jackson State could have put that game away. And I look at South Carolina's defense and how their defense is rolling and definitively beating teams. I think they should legitimately be the number 1 team this week. And we'll see how Jackson State plays next week. I think there are 2 or 3 things, and we talked about it on the show, how, yes, Jackson State has won, but they have a tendency to go up and down and let some teams hang around that should not hang around. That's why I think South Carolina State is the definitive number 1.
Okay, we got 2 votes for Jackson State, 1 for South Carolina State. Dave, what say you?
South Carolina State should be number 1. The way that they dominated the last couple of weeks has been incredible. And the thing is, folks have been talking about how great Morgan State's defense is, and it is a phenomenal defense, and they dropped 54 points on them. Now, granted, 2 of them were pick sixes, but it was still a lot of points that Morgan State gave up against South Carolina State. I think that was a dominant way to close out the deal to win that conference. And it's not to discredit Jackson State. They're still a phenomenal team. I'm hoping this is the Celebration Bowl game that we all get to see. However, but I think that South Carolina State should be number 1. And I do agree with AD Drew regarding their school down the road in Tennessee State. Tennessee State should be number 3 because of their scheduling.
Still a couple of weeks left in the season for the Southern Jaguars to turn heads and move up those polls. So it'll be interesting to see going down the stretch. 7, Alabama State, 6, Alcorn, 5, Southern. Tennessee State checks in at 4. North Carolina Central, number 3. South Carolina State this week is number 2. And the Jackson State Tigers, the number 1 team in Dr. Cadill's inside the HBCU Sports Lab. So, guys, I want to close things up. And it's a bit of a serious note in terms of taking a look at sort of the environment within college football. Commissioners have had to make statements over the past couple of weeks now. We've had some pretty rough-looking brawls toward the end of games. Emotions are running high. Hardware is at stake. But I guess the question becomes, what's fueling it? Or how can it be prevented? We'll start with you, Dave, in terms of just kind of taking a look at, and this is happening. I don't care if you're talking about FBS, FCS. It's just, I don't know, the nature right now of the college football sporting environment.
Yeah, I think there's layers to it, right? I think some of it is maturity. Some of it is the identity, because typically teams give the identity of the coach. But I will say, when commissioners have to do statements, you have to make a statement. The commissioners, because the respective commissioners have to make a statement as well with regards to these things when these things happen, so there can be a decision point about, give a reason for it to not happen as often. I saw all 3 of them that happened in the HBCU lands. Well, 2 out of the 3, because I didn't see the one that happened I believe it was Virginia Union, Virginia State. But the other two were kind of unacceptable, was unnecessary.
They won't
Everybody
dance
knows
for
the thing
TV.
is,
I said they
Say
won't
it.
dance for TV. Two of those incidents occurred on national TV.
Yep.
yeah, and
Yeah,
and that's the thing too, because and I know everybody says, well, it happens to FBS programs too, but we know that we have a different microscope than everybody else.
that's an
So it's
excellent point. Excellent point.
There's a different type of bar. You can't say what happens everywhere. No. We have a different microscope. We got a different fight we're dealing with here when we have these things. So we just have to make sure we let our players understand it. But it comes down to the folks being the adults in the room. Even though the players are technically adults, we're talking about the coaches. We got to do better in that regard.
Mike, to his point, all these games are televised now, and the microscope is different when we start talking about HBCUs. Are bigger fines the answer, or what exactly are we dealing with here? Go ahead, Mike.
Okay, yeah. I'm sorry. I saw all the brawls. I think to David's point, there were some levels to this thing, and one of the brawls, the coaches really squelched it really quick. You could see the leadership presence on the field and in the locker room, and in the other two, they seemed to linger on and on, and the cameras were going to stay on them. I mean, we have a different lens, that different microscope, and they were going to stay on. And you wondered, where was the discipline? Where was the coach? Where was the leadership, either in the locker room and on the team, and in the coaching staff? You saw some where even coaches were actually getting involved. So I was wondering, where we got to first hold leadership accountable. Number two is, I think the SWAC, I think they're going to take a hard look at more severe fines. I don't think fines is the answer. I think it's it's a piece of the medicine, but I think you also have to really address the leadership in that room. Are you holding those coaches accountable? And maybe that means a higher level of accountability in some way, form, or fashion. But I did not like the way, in particular, how the Central game, how that just lingered on and on. I think the camera's going to leave, and they stayed on the brawl. That looks bad in a number of ways. And I think the leadership has to get a hold of that situation, get to the room. So I think you got to hold that leadership accountable and responsible for some of those actions.
Wilton, I remember a couple of years ago, and this was one of the infamous, is he SWAC thing kind of came out. But I remember Coach Prime sent the players to the locker room immediately after game. Game was very chippy. Emotions were running high, but he caught a ton of flack for sending the players to the locker room. But when you have a situation like that, or where you see the game is a little bit out of getting a little bit chippy or whatever the case might be, I mean, is the post-game handshake, is it even worth it?
I think it's worth it, because at the end of the day, I'm gonna always be a person or a stickler for making sure that sportsmanship is done well and done the right way. And believe it or not, sportsmanship does go a long way. It's very important. Granted, you want to win the games and you want to, you represent your schools and compete for championships, but that sportsmanship factor is definitely there. So it needs to still be there. However, to Mike's point and Dave's point, is that leadership is where things come in at. Like, the leadership definitely has to take more charge and making sure players on their respective teams are doing their job. And then also, I think as a person, I didn't necessarily catch the MEAC in real time. I had to go back and watch that one. But as far as like the Virginia Union and the Jack State and Alabama State brawl, like, it was just like, to Mike's point, with the Jack State and Alabama State game, the camera just kept going. I think if you, as a coach, you have to tell your players, like, look, we still got another game. And I'm sure TC did, and Coach Robinson as well. We got other games to still be played. And more so than anything, if you're Jack State, you talking about competing for a championship, you still got Alcorn to play next week that you're trying to win. I would suspect that there may be some players that were involved in that brawl that may not see some playing time in that game next week. And
I think that's going to happen across the board, Wilton.
Yeah,
I think MEAC's going to suspend some players too. But the thing is, with the MEAC's already locked in, it's going to be interesting in how they're going to handle that aspect of it.
Exactly, because if you from the MEAC standpoint, you're thinking like, okay, well, maybe you're not playing for a couple quarters in the Celebration Bowl. If you're Jackson State, it's like, well, you might not be playing for some of the time, or you may miss playing in the Soul Bowl. But if you're a coach, you're thinking like, we want our best players playing on the field at all times. So I think more than anything, I don't think necessarily having bigger fines is the answer, but I do think maybe having bigger punishments. Like if it's saying like your star players or your key players can't play in this game at all, I'm pretty sure that would send a bigger message than a fine.
And obviously we see coaches, they're in the middle of trying to break things up, but I mean, you got 30, 40 guys, and it's a select group going at it. It just becomes a bit harder, becomes tougher, and you're trying to get guys to get back and get out of the melee. AD, Drew, your thoughts?
Well, if you want your best players to play in the big game, we have to equip our best players with the ability to make better decisions so that they can play in the big game and not be suspended or whatever for doing stupid stuff. That's number one. Number two, we say that the microscope is bigger on HBCUs when these events happen on national TV. I don't know if the microscope is bigger on HBCUs or the fact that we personalize even more when it involves one of our beloved institutions, whether you went to school there or whether that is your arch rival. You still personalize it when you see one of our schools doing something this stupid and ignorant on the field. And yes, I said stupid and ignorant. All right. Now, I'm going to flip this from an administrative point, since I have worked as a college administrator and currently am. And I'm going to get blunt when I say this. The incidents that I have seen, including the incident, and I'm going to throw the incident that happened at Tuskegee Homecoming into this mix also, scared the shit out of me as an administrator. Because a lot of our institutions don't take the security plan, don't take the EAP and the other preventative measures that we can do to drill this, to practice this, to make sure that people are in place post game and everything else to try to discourage these types of events. And be it lack of resources to pay for the security, lack of personnel, lack of foresight, lack of planning, it is starting to rear its ugly head, unfortunately, at the end of the 2024 season. And what I predict is going to happen, we're going to see some overcorrecting. We're going to, especially in football, I guarantee you, we're going to see people get away from the hockey line in football. No post-game handshakes. If we can't go out and post-game handshake and dap each other up after 60 minutes of hard-fought football, then just get rid of it altogether. If that's what we have to do to save face. Somebody's going to be overcorrecting right now. Be it two coaches decide to do it or whatever, or a conference decides to come down with it. But something has got to change because if we continue to do the same thing that we have been doing, especially what has been going on the last 2-3 weeks in HBCU football, this is not ugly compared to how these could have been blown out of proportion.
And I'll say this, AD, to your point. I think when you attempt to do that, let's just say, you know what, forget the post-game handshake. You know the flack that comes behind it. Oh, you classless. It happens. I've seen it happen.
But it needs to come. Both coaches agree beforehand. We're not going to shake hands and put it out there publicly so that you don't have people up here thinking about Jackson State has no class or Oklahoma State has no class. You remember what we were doing during the pandemic? Everybody just stood on the opposite sides and waved at each other and all that stuff. Hey, we may have to overcorrect this if it's got to come from the conference commissioner or whatever. Let's do something. Let's get the fans back and have confidence that they can go to a game or watch a game on whatever network and not see this garbage at the end of a game.
Fair discussion. I'm sure we'll have more discussion in the coming weeks or in regards to that. But I think belt to ass is kind of added to the to the smoke, if you will, as well as with social media. But great place to put a pin on it for this week. A lot of great action this week, guys. Real quickly, final thoughts. hardware given CIAA, SIAC, in the SWAC and MEAC as well. Your thoughts on the weekend? Put a bow on it, Dave.
I asked for no chaos earlier this week, and I got no chaos this week, and I'm very happy I did not get chaos. We got a different type of chaos, but not regarding the championship. So congratulations to South Carolina State, congratulations to Jackson State, congratulations to Southern, Virginia Union, and Miles, and good luck in the postseason, because now that's what we're about to hit for those 5 institutions.
Mike, give it to us.
Yes. Valley. We talking about Valley? That's my exit point. No, seriously. Kudos to the team fighting till the very end. You know, you had the Alabama States, you have the Alcorn States. They're still fighting at the end. They haven't mailed it in, but congratulations to Southern, to Jackson State, to South Carolina State. Congratulations to those teams. I personally, as a fan, would love to see Jackson State versus South Carolina State, but to the other teams that have not mailed it in, great weekend of football, minus kind of the stuff we've had to talk about over the last 5 minutes. So let's put a pin in it there from my perspective.
There it is. AD.
Interesting vote in the SIAC for Coach of the Year. Coach Sam Shea won it, well deserving, but I mean, everybody who did not vote for Sam Shea or voted for Teddy Keaton second, and that does a valid argument to make Teddy Keaton Coach of the Year, going from 0-10 to SIAC championship game. It would have been a cop-out if they were coaches of the year, but in this case, I really don't think it would have been a cop-out if both of them would have shared in that award for what they have done. And my last take, damn you, FAMU.
Will, to take us out, man. Put a bow on it.
Man, honestly, other than the brawls, that was somewhat of a down. I thought it was a really good weekend of football. Obviously, shout out to Miles. Shout out to Virginia Union. Virginia Union getting its revenge against Virginia State. But, obviously Clark didn't win that game against Miles. But Teddy Keaton, the job he's done this year, going from 0-10, putting him in the SIAC championship game, you can't say enough about the job he's done. Obviously, congrats to Jackson State, Southern, both winning the SWAC East, SWAC West divisions respectively. And I'm going to say this. For Valley, I know Mike says Valley, but I'm just saying, man, this is a team that, Charles, we talk about this all the time. Valley plays you tough, very, very tough in that first half, and now they got over the hump, and they got a win against a really, really, well, some would say depending on quality opponent or whatever, but like they finally got that win, and this was an inspired win that they got, and so you can't help but be happy for the team and Coach Wade and what he's been able to do. So I thought it was a great weekend of football.
They beat the Black College National Champions. That's a huge win for his program. So kudos to Mississippi Valley. Kudos to Mississippi Valley. Kudos to all those teams: Southern, Jackson State, Miles, of course, Virginia Union. Great weekend of football action, guys. Thank you for giving your perspective this morning and setting the stage for this upcoming week of HBCU football. You know how we always get out of this thing. We'll start off, David.
Course.
Mike.
Lecture.
AD and Wilton.
Dismiss.
We'll see
AD,
you guys.
where you at, man?
He in that tunnel.